have I? How is that, Michael?
That's good. That's better now.
Yeah. Okay. So welcome everyone to the Cosmic Ascension Waves of Light with myself, Soma ARah. And today's date is the 11th of July. And we have Michael Feeley, who I'm delighted to be talking to today and connecting with. It's been a while since our last interview or chat connection. And I'm looking forward to today. And one of the first questions I have, Michael, because I could really feel energies coming in today, this morning, and I felt that it was to do with this interview and more about your energy. So one of my first questions is, what is your connection to the Pleiadians?
I have been told that I do have a connection to the Pleiades. I've had, when I went up on a Starfleet, even though there's multiple races, it was a Pleiadian Starfleet. In a lucid dream, obviously I knew it was a dream, in the house that I lived in at the time, I had Pleiadian beings coming out of bathroom mirrors, and they were liaising, and they'd brought guardians with them and all kinds of things. So I am told that I have a connection to the Pleiades, but then again, I have a connection to lots of things. I think I've, just like a snowball that's rolling down the hill. I'm collecting snow with each experience, but I do have a Pleiadian connection.
Yeah, I was really feeling that this morning, and I was also feeling a very strong Egyptian connection with you and past life, and kind of those three energies all intermingled, like Pleiadians, Egypt, and past life connection with you. When I say past life connection with you, I know that we're connected in past lives, but the past life I mean with you is like your Pleiadian, Egypt, and your own past lives. They all, those three things seem to be showing up.
Yeah,
For me, that's what I'm feeling this morning.
no, you're extremely accurate, because when I've traced my family bloodline back through Celtic Irish kings, I've traced it back further to Queen Mary Tatton, who was also known as Queen Scotia, but she was one of the siblings of Akhenaten and Nefertiti, and she was the brother of Tutankhamun. So my bloodline is Egyptian pharaohs, kings and queens of Egypt. So that, again, you are extremely accurate in terms of your intuition. I do have knowledge of past lives. I do, even in this current life, sit at this desk and I go on time slips. And one of the places that I time travel to, and I have full conscious awareness of doing it, are the temples and the pyramids of Egypt. So I do have, again, an extremely strong connection to Egypt of the past, which of course lives with me in the present.
I am very connected to I never pronounce it correctly, but Akhenanon, Akhenon, I think it is.
Yeah.
Do you have a connection to him, or?
Well, because in those ancient times, families would marry family, just like modern day royalty do. There's going to be some kind of genetic connection throughout, I would imagine, because, as I say, brothers married sisters, and so on and so on, so that there's going to be a pure essence of blood somewhere that has disembarked and spread out. So I would imagine that you'd be able to trace all of these characters back to the same essence.
Yeah. So maybe let's get into that, into past lives in Egypt. And one of the first things that the Pleiadians said to me years ago was that they built, with our help, they built Egypt. So they were the founders of Egypt. And I since that time, I've had several experiences where people that I've connected with, like yourself, and often I see an image of people being there at that time, in that lifetime, of creating the foundation of Egypt and the pyramids and the Sphinx, and I don't think there's really a question there, but so I guess my question is, what do you think of because you've been to Egypt recently, haven't you, over the last couple of years?
Well, it was before lockdown, so relatively recent, but longer than I would have hoped, really.
So what do you think of the energies in Egypt now?
I think the energies in Egypt now are purely commercial, and you step too far back to take a photograph, and you're standing in the fire of McDonald's. So it's become extremely commercial, and it's become very, very, should we say, diluted. But the Egyptian strong energies have always been there, and they're coming back with a vengeance. Now, in terms of the Palladians and Egypt, I once dated the Great Pyramid at being nearly 74,000 years old. Now, the only other person that I am aware of in the world that has come anywhere near that age is a gentleman called Billy Myers, who was a Palladian contactee. And the Palladians told him that it was roughly about the same age that I've dated. Now, I didn't know that, but I've since found out that we've kind of dated them around about the same time. So again, that's a consistency between Palladian information. When you look at the pharaohs of old, they were star travelers. A lot of them were hybrids. They would induce the soul out of the body, and they would shoot up the shafts of the pyramid and go to different star systems. The Pleiades is an extremely important system, as in Sirius, as in Arcturus, as in many of these systems. I have found that the Giza Plateau represents Earth, Mars, and Venus. And again, when you look at the word Cairo, Al-Qahira, a place like Mars, I have found that the Great Pyramid is a pure, perfect antenna, and that antenna is transmitting and receiving information from the planet Mars. I have found that the crop circles of England are being pulsated from the rings of Saturn. So we have all of these different communications going on between the stars. Now, modern day science will tell you that the likes of Sirius A is 8 light years away, which means that if you could travel at the speed of light, it would take you 8 years to get there. But it's absolute utter nonsense. We don't need light years. In between the time and space continuum, there are portals, and those portals give you instantaneous travel to anywhere in the universe. You are there. So you don't need light years. You have portals between time and space, and they're the ones that are being used to travel what should be tremendous distances, but they're instantaneous, where the start of the journey is in the same space as the end of the journey. So there is no distance. And I've come up with mathematical formulas for that. I get lots and lots of quantum equations downloaded into my head that I write down. And the ones that I've had in the last 6, 8, 9 months are related to using Earth as a free energy capacitor, how to create portals, how to travel through space with free energy. All of these different quantum equations that have come into my head. And literally, if you could see that my wall, it's full of whiteboards full of quantum equations. So there's quite clearly an intergalactic other world. Now, I do know actually who's sending these, and this also gives me a connection to Egypt as well and other places. So my life at the moment is mathematics, quantum physics, and working them out for the betterment of humanity. But there is always has been, always will be a connection between us and the stars.
Yeah. And I think the work you're doing is fantastic, and you always come across as being so grounded and just bringing in those higher frequencies and informations to do with the stars and just a whole load of stuff. And your work seems to be, the information, the research that you do seems to be ever progressing and proceeding forward and moving forward. There never seems to be an end stop with you. You're just continuously doing the work and the research and receiving downloads as well, I believe. You'd have to be, like, you couldn't be doing the work and that you're doing and not receiving downloads and giving your connections.
I am, and I know exactly who's sending them. I've recently discovered several members of my soul group, and those members have always been with me throughout my life, but I didn't know. And they were preparing me to a certain stage when one of the greatest minds that ever lived could come in and take on my teaching from that point. Now, I've identified 3 people who are in my soul group. One of them is Nikola Tesla, the other one is Sir Isaac Newton, and the third one is Leonardo da Vinci. In medieval times, I was Leonardo da Vinci's personal scribe, and we spent lots of time in the Great Pyramid together documenting his findings. Now, everybody thinks that Leonardo da Vinci is just an artist. He wasn't. His first love was science, it was invention, it was engineering, it was mathematics. So all of these downloads that I'm getting in terms of free energy and everything else are from Leonardo da Vinci. And I speak directly to him, and he's now my teacher, as he was in medieval times. And we've arranged, or we've agreed, that I will finish the work that he never got to finish. Now, the only way I can do that is by him giving me the information. Now, all of these scientific mathematical equations are directly from him telepathically.
Wow. That's quite an achievement, Michael.
But I had to get to a certain level before Leonardo could actually step in and take it on. But for your audience, if you're looking to a character that was nicknamed Salai, which is Salai, abbreviated as Sal, Sal, who is really Giacomo Capriati. That is me in a previous time, in a previous life. And when I go back to previous times, I'm going back to merge with him. And he was Leonardo's scribe then, and I am Leonardo's scribe now.
Wow. Wow.
Leonardo himself was a star traveler.
Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't surprise me. I think a lot of the great people in history have been channels. And what's really coming to mind now is the how we came from the stars, and we're so connected in each lifetime, again and again and again and again, and we come back to who we know and what we know, and we come back to our soul families. And to me, it just seems like I often see this image where we're all connected, and we all meet up again from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, and we all re-meet our spirit guides or masters, or I don't really like the word masters because it's giving our power away, but but the spirit guides or teachers, and that I see it so often that it's and perhaps I need better words to describe it, but the connection where from the dawn of humanity, where and especially Egypt, where we come back again and again and again in each lifetime, and we just keep reconnecting with each other and bringing forward the information, and how we do get targeted as well from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. And I was told that there is some kind of etheric or non-physical tracking device that both the positive and negative agendas, or or star nations, whether the negative would be reptilian, or one of them would be the reptilians, but how they use this tracking device, etheric tracking device, probably. I mean, it's definitely etheric, but how they use this tracking device to locate us from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. So both the negative and the positive agendas know who we are as children before we do. And what I'm talking too much, but what's coming to mind is I had a so-called dream when I was about 8 or 9, maybe a bit older. And I was in this glass building. I think I've shared this with you before, but I was in this glass building and everything was glass. The inside, the outside. The outside was like a dark glass so that you couldn't see in, but the inside was also glass, like a clear glass. And I'm sure I spoke with you about this, but recently, over the last couple of years, I saw this building on a movie, actually, and it was the MI5 building in London. So that's what I mean when I say that they know who we are before we know as children, before we wake up. One of the questions. Sorry, Michael, go on.
I was going to say that they're doing also in the spiritual world, in the spiritual reality, which is the true reality. We illuminate, so they can see the ones who are becoming more and more luminous. So that if we could see real reality, it is a filament of light. It is a filament. It is lines and grids and dots of vector space. Yeah. And as humans, we are seen as almost an egg shape within those grids. Yeah. So the more and more you become illuminated, the brighter your egg shines, and it can be seen across the universe, so that they can see the ones who are developing. But as always, light attracts moths. Mm. So we do have both sides trying to locate us.
And one of the questions I have for you is, who is one of the most inspirational people working in the spiritual field that you've met?
Good question. I don't know if I have an answer. When I first started out in the so-called spiritual field, everybody draws from various characters. You have the likes of Jordan Maxwell, Santos Bonacci, all of those people that are talking in an esoteric way that you resonate with, and you kind of gravitate towards their videos and their material. And then the more you advance as a person, you begin to realize that the answers come to you when you ask. You are really the scroll, and you get written on. So I don't have any particular influence, because my only influence is what happens to me personally. And if I was to sit in silence and ask a question, the answer will come. The strange thing is I write books to teach people that you don't need books. Because when you get to a certain stage, you realize that you have access to the whole universal library. So do I have any influences? No. Were there any people that I used to like listening to when I first started out? Yes. But I no longer have any influences. I'm extremely standalone in terms of my information, in terms of the information that comes, where it comes from. Some of the things that I get told, no one else in the world knows. And that for me is sufficient.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the questions I also have for you, Michael, is what have you been up to since we did our last interview? Like, what have you been doing?
Again, a lot. I've written a complete book called The Movement Illumination of the World, which Leonardo did the foreword for and has contributed throughout the book in terms of a new message for humanity. So I've been doing books, I've been doing lots of short videos, which will be coming out soon. I've done other podcasts, I've done stage events. in essence, I've been in kind of an incubation period coming into the next stage. And that next stage is an extremely powerful stage. I'm sitting here now and I can feel that there's extremely powerful beings all around me and coming through me and actually looking through my eyes at this screen. And they are extremely powerful. Now, the only way that they can sit there in comfort is if there's some kind of compatibility in terms of vibration and frequency. So what I've been doing, as I always do, is trying to increase, trying to get better, trying to know more than I knew before. And every day I want to know more than the previous day. And that for me is what keeps me going. But there are so many new beings coming in now into this new phase that it really, really is incredible. So that's what I've been doing. I've been working on myself, going in the direction that I'm being, should we say, guided towards. And that leads me to a completely new person. It's a new person within the old person.
Yeah.
Some people believe that the caterpillar is the end of existence, and mystical people realize that there's a butterfly yet to come.
Yeah. 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 I think the energies, that's a really good description. I think the energies over the last couple of years, since COVID kicked off in 2019, I think it was, have just been so intense, and it's so intense to the point I've had to kind of slow myself down to be present, much more present in the day and in the now, because otherwise I'd be sucked into this vortex of intense energy. I've had to kind of slow down my energy to and be more focused on the now in order to be able to withstand some of those intensity and higher frequencies. And it was just lost, and it seems to be very tied into other dimensions and parallel timelines, and it was which I've had a lot going on of those experiences of parallel timelines and other dimensions. I've had a lot of that going on for me personally since COVID kicked off, and I think that is a collective thing. I think there's definitely a lot happening within those fields. Are you finding that with parallel? Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, I'm quite frequently going into different times and being perfectly aware that I'm there, and almost going back into, as I said, that the person that I was in those times, where what you deem to be the past, the now, and the future are really merging as one, because they are really in the same place. If you look at time in the universe being a cyclic repetition, so beyond the future is the past, beyond the past is the future. So it is all in one place. But I'm certainly feeling there is a change. And a number of years ago, I was walking through a forest at night, and I saw pulsating grids coming from what we believe to be the moon towards Earth. And I now have the mathematical equations for those grids. And I've realized that it is those pulsating grids from what we believe to be the moon that is tilting the Earth at 23.5 degrees. And it is that tilt that will cause a split in Earth's dimensions. Now, the original moon I have located. So the moon that we see is actually an observation post. It is not a moon.
Yeah.
So the actual initial moon, the original Earth's moon, is called Lilith. And I've located her between Earth and where the moon is that we believe to be the moon. But because she's non-luminous, you can't see her. But the word Lilith means of the darkness. And it was called Lilith because of the darkness. She's non-luminous, you can't see her, so she's in the dark. But I've actually located Earth's original moon. But the observation post that we see as the moon, that even science says it shouldn't be there, it's too big, it's an anomaly, that's because it was made to look like a satellite, but it's not. And that is what's causing a split in Earth's dimensions. And you will have the group of people that just don't get it yet, that will remain where they are, but there will be a group of people who do, who will be going into new vibrations of Earth, and that's being caused by the observation post that we call the moon. But I'm certainly feeling there's a great change. There's certainly a great change within me, and in terms of being grounded, I learned a long time ago that I am a messenger for important information. I am a conduit for what's coming through. And I have now greater significance than that.
Yeah.
It is the information that is what is significant.
Yeah.
And when you come with that, without that ego that I'm important, it's all about me. It's not. It's about the message. Yeah. And if you come to it with that intent and that understanding, that in itself is what grounds you. Realizing your place, realizing that you are important as a conduit, but the information is far more important than you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally feel that resonance with you there within that. And it's the information that is most important. Sometimes I find myself that I have a reluctance to step forward. Sometimes I tend to retreat back, like I have done the last year or two, where I've kind of stopped doing interviews and just needed to maybe recuperate some of my energies and slow down not slow down the intensity of the energies on that's hitting the planet at the moment and humanity, but just to be in the energies in kind of a slower pace, because otherwise I would, because I so many of us really get affected by the energies, and I feel that those energies are so intense sometimes, so expansive, and I've had a couple of experiences over the last couple of years. One comes to mind where I was filled with so much love, frequency, and energy and vibration that I actually felt like I was going to explode. That I was just filled to the brim with such a high frequency that I had to pace myself somehow, or just. Very hard for me to describe it.
I've had the same experience in terms of when people used to invite me to do talks or invite me to events. I would always say yes, always. And sometimes, it would mean traveling hundreds of miles just to do an hour's talk. But then all of a sudden, I started to say no. And I came to the conclusion that I didn't want to do that anymore. And the further conclusion that I've come to is that I'm being streamlined. And I'm now being kind of streamlined in terms of going to the significant things, doing the significant things that are important, doing the significant platforms that are important. Because it's the conveyance of that message. And that message needs to be in these significant places. So now I tend to say no to the majority of things that I once agreed to do. And there's always a reason for it, that there's always a reason that is often beyond your scope of awareness. But you just have to trust that your ship is being steered in the right direction. And if they say that there's too much crew, or you're trying to go to too many islands, just concentrate on one or two. You have to accept that there are those in a better place to make that judgment. So I do say no to the majority of things now, because there's something that I'm being streamlined for.
Yeah.
And again, you're almost trying to please everybody at once, and you can't. You have to come down and bring it back to the center.
Yeah.
And you have to start thinking, I've done that. I've traveled the hundreds of miles. I've done the 2 or 3 talks a week. I've cancelled everything, and I've driven somewhere to do a 30-minute talk and come all the way back. For what reason? You know, there's bigger things at play. There's bigger things coming. There's bigger platforms that I need to concentrate on.
Yeah.
And you can't do that if you're trying to do everything.
Yeah.
So you really have to bring it back to one place and then reassess and say, I'm going to go there, but not there.
Yeah. So I have lots of questions for you. But sorry, just give me a second. So one of the things, a couple of the things that are really becoming very well known the last couple of years are the weather modifications and manipulations, and also the food. Some of the things that are being done to our food and the path it seems to be going down. Would you talk to those about those things? I don't know if you want to start with the weather or the food, or
Well, the ability to change the weather is not a new thing. Again, if you go back to ancient Egypt, they were able to manipulate the weather and change the weather. You know, that there's people that have heard thunderstorms inside the Great Pyramid, and that is because they're sending energy one way down a particular shaft, and then they're sending the opposite energy down the other shaft.
oh,
And that is the thunder and the lightning that people can hear inside the Great Pyramid. But from that, they were able to change the climate. So it's not a new phenomena. What we believe to be a new phenomena, a new science, is not. It's an ancient wisdom. When we look at the so-called New World Order, this is not a new concept. It was a concept in ancient Egypt. So a lot of the things that we are mistakenly thinking are new are not. So there is the ability to change the weather. There is the ability to fly over a particular area and gauge the level of awareness through the frequency of that area. That they do have all of these technologies that we're not aware of. So it is not a new thing. Yes, it's happening, and yes, it is. Global warming is a natural phenomenon because if you imagine everything in the true reality is really an electrical grid. And I've worked out that the sun is almost like a fan heater, and everything else is an electrical grid. So when you have a greater flux of electricity in the grid, you get a period of intense heat or a change in the climate because there's a change in the electromagnetic field of reality. But it is being used for negative ends because it is my belief that at some point in the future, there will be a lockdown on travel under the umbrella of climate change. So it is always everything that is happening has always been used as a way to control the population. So that is in terms of weather. In terms of food, people will say that.
can I just intercept that? So I agree with you. I think that there will be more lockdowns under the disguise of global warming, which I don't believe in at all. I think it's a crock of
yeah,
I think it's untrue.
It's basically an increase in electricity in the grid.
Yeah.
So it's happening on every planet. It's not just this one, you know.
Yeah. This, so that brings to mind the 15-minute cities. Do you think they're going to come into place?
I think there's so many plans that are ready to come into place. But I do think that when enough people say no, we change the timeline. And it is when we change the timeline that these things never come to pass. So we have all of these plans and all of these intentions, but plans usually change. So they could come in, but the likelihood is we will bypass it because we will change timelines.
Yeah. So I'm also, you know what I'm feeling now, Michael, is that energy, because when I do the interviews, I get information about people, whether I want it or not. And I pick up on the person's I'm a conduit. I'm a conduit for information, whether that's for the collective or the individual, which is why one of the reasons I ended up doing readings. But so what I'm seeing for you, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this, because we are friends and that's important to me. But what I'm seeing with you is, and I can always edit it out, but I'm seeing Atlantis with you, a past life in Atlantis with you, really strongly, where you were there. And which has so much to do with now these days, because they keep explaining to me the reversal, they call it the reversal of Atlantis, where we didn't ascend at the time of Atlantis, and now in this parallel kind of stream of ascension that we're in, which we were in Atlantis, but we chose not to ascend, but this time we do. So I guess my question is, are you aware of your lifetime in Atlantis?
Not in terms of Atlantis itself, but it just seems to me that what I have now, where the position that I'm in now, is obviously a collective of many other things, many other places, many other star systems, and you are kind of an amalgamation and a merging of all of those different things, which really takes you to your most current place, which is here. So it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. In terms of, I mean, that place, you know, I have my opinions of what that place is and where that place is, but it wouldn't surprise me because I'm actually in Atlantis now, which is pure awareness, and that's Atlantis to me. It's inside. It's the head. It's the crystalline of the pineal gland, which gives you access to beyond the senses. So
I think we touched upon this before, and I'm starting to see what you're saying.
Yeah, if you from my point of view, what have there been advanced cities that have been lost to the sea? Yes, both on Earth and also the cosmic sea above us. If you when you start to dissect the Atlantis story, when you look at what does Atlantis mean, it means the island of Atlas. What is Atlas medically? It is the 33rd vertebra of the spine, because it holds up the island of the head. Now, when you look at the likes of the word Lemuria, it comes from the word mu, which means pure awareness. When you look at the pineal gland, there are regions of the pineal gland which are called the corpora arenacea, which are basically like crystalline buildings. And that's what they look like. That is Atlantis. And when you reactivate the crystalline regions of your spiritual sight, that's when you engage in pure awareness, where you can see beyond, the mundane. So Atlantis is within me. Atlantis is wherever I go. So is Lemuria, you know, and that for me, when I've looked at the ancient world, when I've looked at the mystic teachings, when I've actually deciphered religious teachings, monoliths, monuments, every one of them has a commonality, and that commonality is anatomical knowledge of ascension. And it is this anatomical knowledge of ascension that has been personified into historical characters and historical events, which never really happened. They are a personification of what's happening inside you. So, have I ever been in Atlantis? Yes. Am I in Atlantis now? Yes, because it's wherever I go.
Yeah. And I'm kind of starting to see what you're saying. I work a lot visually, so I get images in and downloads. So I kind of work in two ways. I get visual images in as a download, but I also get words and information with that alongside that. So I work in those two ways, where I receive those informations often at the same time together, which can be mind-boggling to get a download of information at the same time in two separate kind of streams, but it's interwoven. So what's coming to mind is a higher dimension and the crystal cities. That is just so beautiful, and I've seen it before, but it's just crystal cities of huge buildings. That is a higher dimension, a higher awareness of just
those crystal buildings are in miniature form inside the pineal gland. Now, in between the pituitary gland and the pineal gland, there is a region of the brain called the crystal palace, and it's called the crystal palace because it's crystalline. So in miniature form, Atlantis is inside the pineal gland, it's inside the mind. And because the pineal gland is surrounded by cerebrospinal fluid, it is also an island. So you have all of these crystalline buildings inside the pineal gland, which is surrounded by the fluids of the brain. So it's an island. So I get the information in much the same way as you, but with a few add-ons. So I am already existing in Atlantis, because wherever I go, wherever I walk, it's being activated inside me. And there is always a mirror of what's going on.
Yeah.
You can't have the higher realms without the lower realms. You can't have the lower realms without the higher realms. You can't have dark without light. You can't have the seen without the unseen. You can't have consciousness without unconsciousness. No. There's always a mirror.
Or angels without demons.
Well, you can't, because it's that polarity. We're all going through a self-awareness, a self-cleansing, and a self-polarization. And you can't have one without the other. Yeah. Because it is a complementary, simultaneous existence.
The yin and yang.
It has to be. I mean, the yin and yang is the effect. So our reality, which is largely a structure of the brain, a construct of the brain, is a yin and yang effect. But it comes from an unseen cause. So there is always the unseen that creates the seen. But we only see the seen. We don't see the unseen. So is there an Atlantis in the sky? Yes, there is. I know there is, because it's talking about the ocean, the waters of heaven, the cosmic sea. You have the 7 pole stars in any precession of the equinox, and as the pole stars change, the previous one is said to have sunk into the sea. So this happens in the 25,920-year period of precession of the equinox, and there are 7 changes of pole stars, and they are also the 7 islands of Atlantis, which is in the sky. So you have as above, so below. But in terms of, am I in Lemuria, am I in Atlantis? Yes, because it is a reactivation of your spiritual side.
Yeah. It's fascinating how reality is so not what we've been taught.
It bears no resemblance to what we see, to what we've been taught. Because I say, what we see is a construct of the brain. But that's not the true reality. The brain sees what it expects to see, and it creates a movie reel based largely on memory of what it saw last time. So when you start looking beyond the 5-sense reality, the 5-sense consciousness, the 5 senses, into the non-sensory world, the nonsense, then you are looking beyond, and that's when you start to see true reality. If we could see true reality, it's literally lines and dots and a grid.
Yeah. And what's coming to mind is that famous story of when Columbus discovered America, because there was no one there before him.
Apart from the natives on the island,
yeah. Yeah, except for the Native Americans, who were there before him.
We presume they found it before he did.
Yeah. Apart from those people, there's a famous story that they could feel something or sense something out on the ocean, but they couldn't see anything. And then they kept looking and looking and focusing, and eventually they saw a ship, and they didn't see it before because they hadn't, that there was no concept in their minds um of ships, so they couldn't see it because there was there was nothing in their minds to relate it to. So they didn't see what was there in front of them until they kept focusing in on it. So that kind of just come into mind.
I did, and absolutely, you know, when you go to Rosslyn Chapel in Edinburgh, there's evidence in the architecture that the Knights Templars and the Sinclair family were in America before Columbus even set sail. So history is wrong. You know, we are told that Neil Armstrong was the first man on what we believe to be the moon, and yet on the Ocean of Storms, there's Egyptian monoliths there. So our history books are not accurate. You know, we are taught generation after generation after generation that this is how it is, this is what you must believe.
Yeah.
But it's not true. Yeah. It's all false information. You know, a lot of these ships are actually projections of a mind, because it's minds that fly them. So some of the UFO sightings that we are seeing are actually the projection of a craft, not the actual craft, even though some of them physically are. But these crafts are flown by the mind of the pilot. They're not flown with instruments. And for anyone who's actually been on board, they are flown telepathically. So, you know, you have to have a really good, strong and focused mind, you know, otherwise you'll end up somewhere you don't want to be.
Yeah, like Mars.
Well, each planet exists in multiple dimensions at the same time. So in the dimension that we see, it looks uninhabitable, it looks barren, it looks dead. But there's multiple other dimensions of frequency where life is plentiful. So they do come from Mars. There's evidence that there's been civilizations on Mars. There's still civilizations on Mars. You know, I've spoken to people who've been offered a chance to go there. The civilizations on the moon. We need to just start again. Yeah. In terms of, you know, our place in the galactic family, and what we are, where we've come from, where we're going, and our potential here. Yeah. But you won't do that by watching, you know, the BBC science programs, because that
Love Island.
Oh yeah, well, yes. The less said about that, the better, really. But
I know.
That's not where you're going to find
the real history,
the real history and the real truth.
Yeah. And it's mind-boggling. There's so much information that is just, it's so opposite of what we're taught. And I think that you know, the timeline that we seem to be collectively going down, or one of them anyway, is a mass awakening of an ascension. And there's so much information that's coming to light, and some of the energies collectively we're in at the moment are so intense. But one of the experiences I had recently, when I say recently, I mean last 5-6 years, I was taken up to Mars, and I didn't know where I was at the time, but I saw I was shown some really important information, and I was shown like a bulldozer. And I don't think you could actually call it a bulldozer, but they were building huge buildings, and there was a sense of urgency. And I'd gone up in the lift with this woman who I remember what she looked like, who in my so-called dream, but she had long, dark, curly hair. It wasn't natural. It looked like mine, because curly hair naturally is messy. It was more like a perm, where it was perfect. Everything was perfectly curled. And she took me up in this lift, and then she said, look over there. So I looked over there. It was kind of in the distance, just slightly veered off to the right, and they were kind of manically building these large, they looked like high-rise flats to house people, and they must have been in domes, covered in glass domes or some kind of domes. But the whole, you know, our whole reality is really, it's coming to light, it's becoming, you know, much more obvious, and there's so much information that's out there and being shared about our real history and the nature of reality within every system, you know, quantum physics, planets, the moon, the sun, the stars, and how you were saying just now, how the ships that are in existence are moved by thought and mind, and steered in directions that we want to go in. And it's mind-boggling, the information that is out there, that a few years ago were considered conspiracy theories, such as the weather, and geoengineering, and the chemtrails, and which they've now finally admitted to. And it just, you know, sometimes it just makes me so angry how we've been laughed at. I mean, look at the likes of David Icke, who laughed off stage, you know, and I've been there, and I'm sure you have as well. Um, um, Kind of David Icke is just an extreme version of someone who's been laughed off stage for being a so-called conspiracy theorist, which makes me, you know, makes me so angry sometimes when I focus on that. So I try not to. I try and steer away from that. But that's to do with the whole CIA and negative, and sorry, I feel like I'm going into a rant here, but I just need to get this out. The whole CIA and other black military ops and things like that, where they are targeting the light workers lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And there seems to be such a whole theme there of even the word conspiracy theorist, such a negative agenda, where you know, we have been laughed off stage and mockery. And I remember saying something about the 13 star signs to someone years ago who was in the spiritual field, and she just said, no, that's not real. Such simple stuff, and the technology that's coming out now, or not coming out, but the stuff that we're being made aware of now. Anyway, I'm going to pause there and let you speak, because I could just go on and on.
No, totally. The domes are really an environment system, just like the Eden Project in Cornwall. But you see, people have always been lacking mental, you know, clarity. That they always lacked mental logic, and the way in which a complete misunderstanding, because they lack the intelligence to understand these things, has always been the howling mob. It has always been the crowd that tries to mock people, that tries to assassinate their character, because they do not understand what these people are saying. And more to the point, they don't have the intelligence to look into what these people are saying. So they have to react in the only way that they know how, which is through the density of mind. They don't have the intelligence to understand it yet. We've all been there when people have said certain things, call us conspiracy theorists. One of my replies really is, can you tell me when the word conspiracy theory was first ever used? And more to the point, can you tell me what it really means? And then you get the main, well, you know, it just means that you're all saying the same thing, and you're all conspiring and thinking. That's not what it means. So go back home, learn, and then come back and we'll speak again. Mm. You know, they don't have the answers to my questions. So if you want to make yourself look a fool, then carry on, because I have the answers and you don't. Conspiracy theory doesn't mean what you think it does. And the word conspiracy theory was first used in the year 1870 in the Journal of Mental Science. That's when the two words were first put together. Of course, it was then used after for the Kennedy assassination, when people started to think, actually, there's bullets coming from all directions here, so how can there be one person with a gun? Yeah. All of a sudden, they were mad. They were lunatics for pointing out the obvious, you know. But people don't understand that. In terms of conspiracy, anything with the word spire means breath. So if you are a a conspirer, conspiracy theorist. It just means that you are breathing together. You are breathing in harmony. And what else means breath? Well, the word Jesus means breath. The word Yahweh means breath. The word Enlil means breath. The word Amun-Ra related to the mouth and breath. It is the breath technique of giving and receiving. Give and you shall receive. That is conspiracy. You breathe in harmony. You breathe as one with the universal force.
Oh,
spirit. That's what conspiracy means. In the same way that I've been called a blasphemer. And I said,
I'm sorry, Michael.
no. People have called me a blasphemer, and I've said thank you. It's like, why are you saying thank you? Because I know what it means.
Yeah. Well done, Michael.
If you know what it means, it's a compliment.
Mm.
If you look at the ancient kind of tree religions and tree cultures like Druidism and different things, the tree represents three things. You have the branches that represent the heavens. You have the bark that represents the terrestrial, the earth. But you also have the roots, which are the unseen. So the roots represented unseen, sacred, secret knowledge. So the word blaspheme means to uproot. So if you are a blasphemer, you are uprooting the unseen knowledge and you are placing it into a public arena. But the church had to make that into a negative thing, in the same way that it makes anti-Semitism or racism a negative thing, in terms of the words without the understanding of what it really means. So a blasphemer is one who uproots what was secret and puts it into a public arena to be seen by all. So yes, I'm a blasphemer and I'm proud of it.
Well done you. I'm so proud of you. I know we haven't physically met, but I'm so fucking proud of you, like the work you've done and what you've brought to public awareness and just kind of I think in awe is the wrong words, but just so proud of you that your backbone in your strength in not giving up. I think that's a characteristic of a lot of star seeds and spiritual people working in the public field. There's that sense of, I will not consent, I will not shut up, I will not back down, I will not sit down, I will not silence myself, I will not censor myself, I will continue with the work I'm doing, and I will talk about this stuff, and you will not censor me. It's that oomph. Yes, but there's several things I wanted to mention or kind of back up on, or not back up, but go back to what we were talking about. And I've made a little note of them. So one of the things, so I'll just go through them individually. One of the things that the Pleiadians showed me about the moon, which kind of I find quite mind-boggling and really interesting, and I'm always looking for more information about it. But what they've showed me is, and my partner, DM, he often, not often, but sometimes he does disagree with stuff I say, and he'll privately he'll call me out on it, and he'll say, Carol, what the fuck is that? Or he won't use those words, but he does address some of the information that they do share with me publicly. So anyway, I'm trying to not veer off track, but one of the things some of the things they've shared with me about the moon is that, and that's been kind of a gradual process, that they've shared, not all at once, but over the years. Some of it's more recent. Some of the information is more recent. I'm sorry, Michael. So some of the stuff they shared with me about the moon at different stages in my own journey is that the original, there was a different original moon, and it was and the moon was blown up in some of the galactic wars. And I just kind of want to get your feedback or thoughts on this, or knowledge and experience. But the original moon that we had, or at least one of them, if we had more, was blown up on purpose during some of the galactic wars, using advanced technology. And then a new structure was put into place that is hollow, and does have underground structures on it, and that it does vibrate. And what else did they say? That there's huge areas or bases beneath the moon underground that are like military type, inhabited by military type. That's the feeling, that's kind of the information I got with that. And then also, so I'll pause there, but also I want to go into the sun and what they shared recently with me.
Yeah, well, the hollow structure that we see now, that we are told is the moon, is that new structure. It was made to look like a planet. It was made to look like a satellite, but it is a way station. It is an observation post. There are advanced soul pools. There are multiple races there. That is interplanetary inhabitants. We do, even Earth has military bases on there, the same as on Mars. The moon that I found, or have rediscovered, shall we say, is consistent with being a shard, or being something from the original moon. All I can say is that I have discovered the true satellite of Earth, which is not what we see. You know, the moon is not the true satellite of Earth. Even science will tell you that it's too big, it's an anomaly, it shouldn't be there. You know, our only explanation of it being there is that it shouldn't be there, because it's not a satellite. You know, the Lilith that I found is the true satellite of Earth. So what we see is what was formed to look like the moon, but it's not the moon. And yes, there are bases on there. Yes, it is hollow. Yes, it looks like a planet. It looks like a satellite, but it's not.
That is, I love how I bounce information off you, and sometimes you don't agree, sometimes you agree with it, and sometimes you don't. But one of the things so thank you for the way that we, the dynamics and the way that we kind of, interlude is the wrong word, but the way we kind of gel together. And there's not many people I can do that with, or, you know, feel the want to do that with. But you're definitely one of them. So the other things I wanted to share with you is the recent information about the sun. So it was definitely within the last 2 or 3 years. I was driving in the car with DM, and well, he was driving, I was in the passenger seat, and I had this very short burst of download. We were somewhere beautiful in Ireland, and it was very pure energy, clean energy, you know, in the middle of nowhere. I think it might have been Galway, in Linan in Galway, which is very high frequency place. And I had this information come to me, this download, very short piece of information, that there's stuff going on with the sun. And more recently, they showed me, because I keep hearing these stories of information that's going on with the sun, and I never trust anything unless I kind of experience it from the Pleiadians. And even then I do question stuff sometimes. But what they showed me recently is that there is a sun that's been placed over the sun. That's what I saw in the image. It was like a sun placed in front of the sun to block the sun, and that the sun is being targeted, and it's not like, there's definitely stuff going on with the sun. So, and I've forgotten what else they said about it now. Oh yes, that was it. Thanks. They said that the sun has changed or upped or intensified the real sun has intensified the energy, the solar flares and the natural energy from the sun has increased and intensified, and it affects our ascension, it affects Earth, it affects everything that those energies are hitting, the sun rays and the sun energies. And one of the reasons they've put this fake sun or object in front of the real sun is to stop those higher frequencies from helping us to ascend at a faster rate. I just kind of wanted to get your feedback on that.
The original sun is a portal to Sirius, which is the great central sun. So our sun is powered by Sirius, and there's a portal between the two. Our sun and Sirius A are in a binary, and when Sirius is going away from Earth, it is the colour red. When it's coming back towards Earth, it is the colour blue. That is the Hopi Indian red and blue Kachina. Now, when it comes round and it's blue, it showers us with advanced frequencies, higher vibrational frequencies. So it's important that that is stopped. There's some kind of manipulation to stop that, because it is raising the vibration and raising the frequency communally of not only the Earth, but of other planets. If you imagine the planets on a billiard board table, and the sun is the white ball, the cue ball, and the energy of the sun, if you were to hit that cue ball and cannon off all of the other balls on the table, that is what is happening with the sun's energies in terms of the planets. So the planets are powered by the sun's energies. So all of the planets of the solar system are reliant upon that frequency, that energy, including Earth. So it's important in a system of control to keep people not advancing, not evolving, and not awaking. Then you have to do something to try and manage these increased frequencies. So with that in mind, there are so many dirty tricks that are going on. It is very conceivably possible. People have seen two suns. People have seen multiple things.
I just have to, and this really affected me so much. But I remember them years ago. I think it was when I first to consciously began channeling them in 2009. I think it was 2010. One of the first things they said to me, the Pleiadians, is that there will come a time in my lifetime where there will be seen what will appear to be two suns in the sky. And I remember speaking I went to a talk that someone was doing, and some very important guy that working in the spiritual field, kind of at a different level, not in a better way, just he was very public, very well known in his own field, which was astrology, very well known in the UK. I don't think he is now, but he was back in the day. And I remember standing up and asking him and sharing that I had been given this download of information and who I was and blah, blah, blah. And he kind of laughed me off the stage. And that really affected me so badly. I just felt so, I don't know, I'm not going to go into that, but anyway, but I know that information is accurate, and it is in my book, and I dated all the downloads of information I was given, so that's in there somewhere. But anyway, would you go into that, because they said it very clearly. There will come a time in your lifetime, Carol, when you will see two suns in the sky, or what will appear to be two suns in the sky, and that's always stuck with me as being so important, and yet so, for a lot of people, so unbelievable. So would you like go into that a bit, Michael? How is that possible?
Because it is a different sun in a different dimension, in a different vibration. And there will come a time in your life when you match that frequency that you are able to see it. So you are looking at a higher dimensional sun. Not everybody can see it, the same as not everybody can see spirit, not everybody can see extraterrestrials, not everybody can see the multiple things that are going on in any time. But everything in this universe has a vibration. Every single thing has a frequency. There is no such thing as absolute zero, because unless something is vibrating, it cannot exist. But if you match the multiple frequencies out there that are beyond our usual scope, you will interact with whatever is in that bandwidth. And you are looking at, from my point of view, a higher dimensional sun in a different frequency of reality.
So you've said that so beautifully. So what you're saying is that the people that are recording these two suns on video are in a heightened state of awareness.
At that moment in time, they are. I mean, it depends on who they are and what kind of journey they've had, which will tell you if they're constantly in that zone. But at the moment that they saw it, they were. Again, another example of frequency and interaction with different worlds is in the middle of a beautiful sunny blue skied Saturday afternoon. I was driving through my hometown and I looked up and there's 3 giant cigar-shaped UFOs above my town. Nobody else could see them. And the reason I know that is because nobody was reacting. Everybody's going about their normal day. Now, if you see 3 massive cigar-shaped UFOs above you, there's going to be some kind of reaction. But there weren't. So how is it that I were able to see them and all of the other people around could not? Because for that moment in time, I had locked on to their frequency. It didn't last long, and obviously I came out of it because I couldn't see them anymore. But in the same way that at that moment in time, you are locked into that frequency. You are glimpsing through the windows of the worlds. And you come out of it as quick as you go into it. But at that moment, at that specific moment, you have locked in to that vibration. And that is why you are able to see things that you ordinarily cannot see. But there will be a time in your life when you can see it, because there'll be a time in your life when you've attained the frequency in which to see it.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful feeling to me that there is so much that we don't know. And times when I step into that energy and just the allowance that brings of we've so much, it's such a beautiful feeling. It's like it's tangible, like we've so much to learn, we've so much to teach, because that's why we're here, right? To share information, to be conduits for the information. And that's what it's about. It's about sharing the information. And it's really got very little to do with us and our egos that sometimes do step in the way, or certainly with me, they do.
No, the whole biblical story of being crucified on the cross is really the death of the ego, because the cross is the body and the ego has to be crucified in order for the higher self to resurrect. So when you sit here and you realize that it's not about you, then your ego has been crucified on the cross. Those who walk around saying, look at me, it's all about me, I'm important, I'm more important than the word, it's because of me that the world will change. Well, they've not yet been crucified. So it's not about the individual, it is about the information. And if you are fortunate and lucky enough and privileged enough to be chosen or elected or whatever the process is to be a conduit, then embrace just how special that is. But I was told many, many years ago, and I quote, "It is not for your benefit, but you will benefit from doing it." And the reason I benefit from doing it is because in the process of doing it, I'm learning a lot.
Mm.
And that is a great benefit because it is forwarding me in ways that could never happen otherwise.
Mm. We've covered a lot. We've covered a lot of stuff today, and I've some things I'd like to go over more. Um, I keep seeing an image of you. Sorry, I keep seeing an image of Peru and also Machu Picchu, which I feel that is very connected to you. So the so one of the questions I have is, what do you think about some of the monoliths that are being found in different places around the earth? There was one recently, I can't remember where it was now.
There will be a lot more found. When you go, I mean, just taking the Great Pyramid as an example, there are so many radar infrared technologies now that they are taken into these pyramids and seeing multiple cavities. But when they go towards the cavities, there's just a brick wall. But what they don't realize is that brick wall is actually a door. And if you say the correct word at the correct time, at the correct frequency, that door opens. So these cavities are actually rooms that stores Earth's true history. It stores extraterrestrial artifacts. It stores things not of Earth. But you have to understand how to open those doors. There are things that will continue to be found, but the explanations for them will be the same explanations. And those explanations are incorrect.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, it is knowingly incorrect. So there will be so much more to be found because the whole planet is littered with this information. You know,
Yeah.
monoliths and monuments and longitude and latitude coordinates to other places, you know, to other stars,
Portals.
portals. There's
Yeah.
portals,
Yeah.
you know. So there's just so much that will be discovered, but the explanations will be false.
Mm. One of the other things they shared with me recently um, is that there will be a huge discoveries found over the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years that will come to light to do with things underneath the earth, to do with discoveries being dug up, to do with tunnels, both positive and negative, to do with remains, whether they're giants or whether they're human remains or whether they're reptilian remains or whatever kind of or remains they are, of bones, of just so much history being rising up from the surface of the earth and being uncovered and discovered and recovered and exposed, like physical objects, physical bones, physical structures, physical buildings, physical evidence rising up to the surface being discovered. Sorry, I was veering off then. But one of the things that was coming to mind when you were talking, when you were speaking before, I think you were talking about antennae. But there is a modern monument in the centre of Dublin called the Spire. I don't know if you've heard of that, but there's it because it's been recently said or spoken about over the last couple of years, where people are saying that it's some kind of antennae, which I well believe is true. And it's Spire, Spire in Dublin. It's quite a famous, it's very well known. But it does seem to be like a centre of an antennae of some sort. And it makes, because when I look at it, I see images in my mind of a lot of underground stuff going on there as well. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know.
No, there is. The Great Pyramid is using actually a corrected pi, which is not the pi that we use. and it is a pure antenna. But it's replicating the mind, and the antenna inside the mind, again, is the pineal gland. That is our antenna to the stars. So the Great Pyramid is I mean, it's many things, but one of them, it's an antenna, which is the batteries that it uses are the crystalline stones at its base, and that basically acts as a battery, and it is a giant antenna to the stars, the same as our head is a giant antenna to the stars. Now, part of these mathematical equations that I've had have enabled me to find a portal that goes from the Great Pyramid straight the way through Earth and out the South Pole, or vice versa, through the South Pole, through the pyramid, and up through the North Pole, because the pyramid was originally the prime meridian. It was changed to become Greenwich, but originally the Great Pyramid is the exact center of the landmass of Earth. So it was a prime meridian. And I found a portal that goes through to inner Earth. Now, there are civilizations in inner Earth, and this is confirmed in these secret rooms in the Great Pyramid by extraterrestrial writings who have documented the 7 entry points into our planet. 2 of them are the poles, the North and the South Pole. So my portal through the Earth, through the pyramid, and through the center of the Earth and out of the poles is consistent with that. Now, to further that, I think that the Great Pyramid is also like a periscope from the inner Earth into this world. Because when you go to the top of the Great Pyramid and you face south, there is a stone that you can't really see because there's lots of stones. But there's one particular stone that, again, if you say the correct word, the correct time, and the correct frequency, it slides open 7 feet. And you walk down nearly 1,000 feet into the Earth. Now, just to give some kind of mental image, that is almost the height of the Eiffel Tower down. There are inner Earth civilizations, and I think that the Great Pyramid also acts as a messaging system, like a periscope to a submarine from inner Earth to outer Earth.
I think you're just amazing, the information you have. And I love bouncing. I love bouncing the information off you that I've been given. And you were speaking just now about Egypt and the pyramids, and what was coming to mind is, and also the Sphinx. And I know the time is getting on, but I just wanted to maybe end on sharing that, because you've brought it up, that, and I'm sorry to the viewers for speaking about or upsetting them, but when I was 8, I left my body due to I couldn't breathe because I had a guy lying on top of me, and I was a skinny thing. I was underfed, undernourished, so I was just skin and bone, and I literally couldn't breathe, and I left my body and connected to the Pleiadians, or they connected to me. And you kind of reminded me of it just now when you were speaking, and you were saying that everything is in the mind and that we don't really go anywhere. It's just in the mind. And that kind of sums up or describes very well what happened to me, because I did leave my body, but I didn't really go anywhere because I was still there present physically. And I had a very unusual childhood, very unusual, where I would receive downloads of information from the Pleiadians, and I didn't know who it was at the time. I just thought, and we spoke about this before in some of our previous interviews, and I didn't know it was the Pleiadians at the time. I just thought they were my guides, because I was aware that, guides are existent, even at a very young age. But they shared, when I was a child, they shared downloads of information, a lot to do with the Sphinx and Egypt. And they showed me this very clear image. One day I was looking at the news and I just went into a download where I was looking at the news, but I was seeing the Sphinx on the news, and I was getting downloads of information about the reality of the real Sphinx and real information, where if you look head on, I think it's think it's as you're looking at it head on, it's the right paw. So it would be the left paw if you were not looking at it head on. But if you're looking at it head on, it would be the right paw. And I saw steps going down beneath into some kind of space or cavity or room or area, and a secret documents, a secret space, a secret informations, like almost like a filing cabinet of you know information that had been hidden and lost deliberately, buried. So yeah, I know. I don't know. Do you want to? Is there anything you want to say, Micheal? Because I could talk to you for hours, but time is getting on.
The Sphinx, how they were able to create these things is they were able to measure out the dimensions of what they wanted from the rocks, and they were able to dematerialize everything else. So when you look at the Sphinx, it's actually dematerialization that's carved the Sphinx. The same is with the Temple of Petra. When you see the temple inside the rocks, they're basically dematerialized. But the Sphinx is a mystery school temple, and the face of the Sphinx is the hereditary priest of the temple, and you have to get permission from the priest to access. Now, mathematically, the face of the Sphinx is the exact same as the face on Mars. It's an exact match. So you go through the plate, which is the Stele of Tutmosis, which is where we get the word Moses, but the word Moses is the title for an initiate. And you have to go through, and there is steps, and there is secret rooms, and there are portals in there, and there's all of these different things, but it is a mystery school temple. And initiates were given access by going into the other worlds to get passwords. And when you are an initiate, you live in the unseen worlds as much as we live in the seen worlds. And you are able to bring things back, and you're able to bring information back. And a lot of the information that are stored in there are not stored in the third dimension. They are stored above the third dimension, in which you have to go to access. So some of the books of the Bible, for an example, the book of John, an initiate will read the book of John, the Gospel of John, in a meditative state, because the information is above the third dimension. In the same way as that in the Sphinx of Egypt, it is beyond the third dimension. But in essence, keeping it simple, it is a mystery school temple. And only Moses, the chosen initiates, are allowed entry by the hereditary priest, which is the face of the Sphinx.
Thank you so much for today.
It's an absolute pleasure.
It's just always a pleasure to connect with you. And I look forward to doing more with you. And what else do I need to say? Is there anything you'd like to share?
I guess really, as I always do, is sit in silence and ask questions, and you will get answers. Stop following so-called gurus. Stop following truth movements that have it wrong. Even ufology groups don't understand the beauty and the sacredness of the UFO phenomena. So stop following these people and experience the answers.
I think that's one of the most important things and that seems very tied in with the negative agenda and getting us to look outside of ourselves, where we just need to look go within and get our own answers and stop seeking anything outside of ourselves.
No answers are really found outside of yourself. Yes, they are an external assistance, but the answer is never outside of you. And when you realize that, when you start separating from your thoughts, from your own mind, that's when you start to go places. Yes, everything in this reality is a construct of the mind, and people are forever stuck there. But there are realms beyond the mind.
Thank you so much, Micheal. Very much looking forward to doing more with you. And it's been such a pleasure, and thank you so much. And so how can people find your work and what you're doing?
I guess, I mean, probably the best place to go is my website, which is micheal-feeley.com. But there's going to be a lot more coming soon in terms of different platforms, different places. So what is to come is far more enhanced than what has previously been. So I'm looking forward to each day.
So there's lots of surprises in store then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of what I'm doing and what I'm learning, and the different platforms that are being built in order for me to present the findings, really, which it will have a dramatic effect if people take the time to listen. You know, not just to listen, but to also look into the same things for themselves. And it will have a dramatic effect for those who wish to participate in what's coming through. And it is coming through. And all the time, even in bed at night, I have to take a notepad and put it next to me.
Yeah.
Because the moment I wake up, there's something there for me to write down.
Yeah.
And I just have to do that. And literally all through the day, there's information coming in, there's images, there's mathematical equations, there's words, there's questions and answers in the same millisecond. And it's all there to be deciphered. But now I have deciphered it. You know, deciphered messages in crop circles, deciphered what the Nazca lines are, and all of these things are going to come out.
Yeah.
You know, because it's a different viewpoint to anything else that's been offered.
Yeah.
And the reason that I know it's accurate is because of where it's come from.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Micheal. And so I'll see you soon.
You shall.
And yeah, I'll see you soon.
Just get in touch anytime, but you take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I'll see you soon. I love you.
You will. Thank you. You will. I'll see you soon.